This mini lesson is on tabs. When we get started though, the first thing we got to look at is why is there a ruler at the top of the page? This will help us with our tabs and also help us with our margins. If you're not in the current view, just be aware that I am in the print layout. It's different than normal. This is normal, this is our print layout. This shows us exactly what the paper is going to look like when we print it out. First question we got to say is why is there a ruler at the top of the page? This will actually give us the dimensions of the piece of paper. I also want to be clear, these are not actual measurements on the screen. If I held a ruler up to the screen, it would not necessarily match up with these. But when you look at it, I'm going to count here. I've got a 1/4 of an inch, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches, and then another 1/4 of an inch, which adds up to 8.5 inches. That's the exact dimensions of a regular standard piece of paper, which is 8.5 by 11. And you'll notice there's actually a ruler on the left-hand side too, which goes all the way down to the 11 inches. So now we've got a ruler at the top, but we've got some areas that are grayed out. And what are these grayed out areas? Well, it turns out these are margins. So these are the edges of the paper that will not be filled. We use these so that people can hold the paper while they read it without having their fingers block the words. And also it makes it easier on printers. It's tough for printers to print towards the edge of the paper, so we add the margins to help with that. But it's essentially the grayed out area. And if I put my cursor at the conjunction between the margin and the not margin area, it highlights it as the left margin, and I can actually click and move my margin, and you'll see how everything reacts. So I'm going to undo that, and we'll take off. Now we know what the ruler is. We've got it at the top. Let's talk about what a tab is. You might be familiar, but a tab is at 0.5 inches per keystroke. So I'll put my cursor here, I'll hit tab, and it jumps my title over 1/2 inch every time I strike the key. But you know, that's a pretty simple thing. You're probably familiar with that. Question number 4 is, what if you want to get fancy? And we've got fancy tabs. We have the left tab, we have the right tab, and we have the center tab. Those are the 3 that we'll focus on. To get a guide for that, I'm going to go to rodmilstead.com. Go into word processing and click tabs. I've already got that up down here, so I'm going to click here, and let's take a look at what each of these tabs does. If I use a left tab, that aligns everything, the left-hand side of all of the text along this tab. And you notice in the ruler there's a particular symbol that represents the left tab, and it looks like the lower left-hand corner of what would be a complete box. So if it looks like the lower left-hand corner, it's a left tab, and you'll notice all the words kind of grow from the left tab to the right. The next one we'll talk about is the right-hand tab. That's this one over here, and you notice that the symbol looks like the lower right-hand corner of a box. And the words here will grow from the right to the left, and it aligns all of the words, the furthest rightmost character along the same line. The third and final one we'll look at is our center tab. This one here is a line going up through the center of the bottom of our box, and all the words are centered along this line, equal number of characters on each side of the line. There's also a decimal tab which aligns the decimals of currencies or numbers that have decimal places, but we're primarily going to focus on these 3 here. So now that we know what these tabs are and what their symbols look like, let's go back to our document and test it out. So here we go. So how do I add tabs to my work? So here it is. Simple thing is, select the tab you want and click the ruler. So I'm going to jump down here a couple spaces, and I'm going to click my tab right there, and it adds a tab, and I clicked it, and you see it shows up when I hit tab. Now it jumps over to this space. I could also add a tab right there, and now when I hit tab, it's not going to go a 1/2 inch. It's going to jump all the way in line with the tab that I just created. If I click here, you'll see that it lines up. By clicking the tabs, it shows a line all the way down. But how did I select that this is going to be a left-hand tab? That is this key box right here. As I roll my mouse over it, it says left tab. If I click it again, it says center tab. Where let me add a center tab here. I'll show you what happens. But let's say this, left tab, and now I'm going to add a center tab at the 4-inch mark. I'm going to tab over, and now we'll say center tab, and you'll notice that now the words are centered. And then let's go ahead and I'm going to click it one more time, and it'll change it to a right tab. And I'm going to do that over here this way right there. And now I'll tab over, and you'll see the words typed from the right to the left. Right tab. So now I know how to add tabs to my work. How do I carry tab settings to the next line? Key is you got to hit the enter key. Watch here. If I hit the enter key, nothing really changes. And you're like, so what's the big deal? Well, I'm going to go back, and now I'm just going to arrow down, and you'll notice all my tabs disappear. So you have to hit enter, not the arrow down key. So I'll go back up to here. Lastly, how do I remove tabs from my work? When I remove tabs from the work, I'm simply going to click the tab and drag it off the ruler, and that will make the tab go away. So we've talked about the 3 different types of tabs, how to add them, and also how to delete them. And that's it for this mini lesson.